Close your eyes and settle in. Tonight's story is called, I Work at a National Park You've Never Heard of. There are doors in the canyon walls. I might finally go through one. Ebony Gorge isn't like other national parks. Good night. Good night. People are drawn here for reasons they don't entirely understand, rangers, visitors, nomads. They arrive without even knowing where they are going, and once they leave, they don't fully remember that it ever existed. There are trees with pulsing veins. Birds that are not birds. Doors that should never be opened. And nobody knows why. Good night. Good night. There are theories, of course. Ideas and hypotheses and whispered discussions in rooms firmly sealed. In the end, these are only theories. Good night. Good night. \\. Good night. Good night. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Good night. Good night. Heather's phone, my ranger friend who'd apparently quit, was in my hand, after fishing it from the cushions of my bedroom couch. Something had clearly happened. She'd left without any warning, but what if she hadn't gone at all? I needed to tell Winona or Lenore. That much was obvious, but which of the two was less intimidating? That was less so. I chose Lenore. Just before I knocked, I changed my mind and backtracked to Winona's cabin, then thought better and hiked back to Lenore, then. The door banged open. Good night. Good night. Just ring already, Lenore said. It's excruciating watching you play pinball through the window. Ah. Right. So the thing is. Good night. Good night. She scowled at me. Good night. Good night. I held up the phone and attempted a companionable grin. She continued to scowl. This is Heather's phone. I found it at my place, but you said she'd quit. She must have left it. Good night. Good night. This was a fair thing for Lenore to say, who spent most of her days in the back country, silently pondering the desert brush in self-elected solitude. For the rest of the 20th century, however, if Heather was missing her phone, she would have searched for it. She would have come to my place to check. You saw her go? I asked. Drive away and leave the park. Good night. Good night. Chief told me. She shrugged. Mentioned it yesterday. Good night. Good night. Let me guess, late at night and with nobody else around. Good night. Good night. How did, her eyes didn't widen, such a display of emotion would be above Lenore, but they did sharpen. She'd no doubt heard about the debacle my first night on lockup duty and my encounter with the fake Winona. She understood. Without even taking the time to swear, Lenore slammed the door behind her and strode for the woods. I trailed after her. Where are we going? Good night. Good night. Not you. Good night. Good night. I could have gone home at that point, but I still had the day off. It wasn't like I was about to go fishing after realizing Heather had disappeared, so I waited. About an hour after nightfall, Lenore returned. Anything? Good night. Good night. She barely even glanced at me. I trailed her back to her unit, aware how annoying I appeared and not really caring. So what now? I asked. Do we start a search? Go looking for the Whitechapel. We hope she never comes back. Good night. Good night. Lenore attempted to slam her door shut, but I shoved my shoe in it. What does that mean? It means that your ranger friend is good and gone. She's not just missing. She's gone. The best thing she can do now is stay away, and the best you can do is stop looking. It will be worse if she makes a visit. How do you know she's gone? You can't have searched the entire park. Good night. Good night. Lenore wiped at a spot of dirt on her cheek. Her already dark expression darkened further. I don't need to. I already found her. She wouldn't tell me anything after that. To be fair, she did slam the hefty wooden door on me and lock it. It would have been difficult to tell me anything through that. But in the following days, I got the distinct impression she was avoiding me more than usual, that is. There was no maliciousness to it. I'd long since realized Lenore wasn't as bad as the other rangers claimed. It didn't feel like she was hiding any grand secret, more that there were details she didn't feel she could stomach to share. Or more likely she didn't think I could stomach to hear. I didn't want to drop it. If there were something I could have done to investigate further, I'd have pursued it, however recklessly. I knew that about myself, but there really was nothing to do. The most I could think of was to wander aimlessly through the wilderness in hopes of stumbling across whatever entrails Lenore had surely already found. I tried to forget it, to busy myself like before and throw myself into Ebony Gorge and its guests. I tried to distract myself. About a week later, I stopped needing to. Good night. Good night. \\. Good night. Good night. The knock came just as I was drifting to sleep. I wasn't sure if it had really happened, or if it had just been the start of a dream. Somebody knocked again. Good night. Good night. I pulled on a shirt and hat and answered the door. Nobody was there. I poked my head out, scanned in both directions, and waited. When I finally closed the door, I didn't go back to bed. Instead, I hovered just at my doorway. This wasn't a teenage ding-dong ditcher. We were at the ranger housing, far from any campsite, and this was Ebony Gorge. If something seemed malicious, it probably was. Whatever had knocked would be back. Sure enough, a few minutes later, the pounding returned. I yanked the door open, mid-knock to reveal nothing. Good night. Good night. Cold snaked from my toes to the back of my neck. Good night. Good night. The third time the knocking came, I didn't bother opening. The fourth time, I considered crawling under my bed like a child. The fifth, I decided to make a break for it. Nobody would be at the door, after all, and Lenore was only a sprint away. Maybe she would know what was going on. I gritted my teeth, prepared myself to run, and threw it open. Good night. Good night. There she was. Good night. Good night. Where I was sure it hadn't been before, a shadow was framed against the trees. Heather. She was a statue, expressionless and unmoving. She lifted a single finger, curled it for me to follow, then retreated into the woods. This is how it ends. That was my first thought. You follow her and you die. Good night. Good night. I knew how these things went. You went after the ominous figure and they turned out to be a serial killer. You split off from the group and the vampire sucked you dry. There was no question about it. Following Heather was a terrible, awful idea. I should have found Lenore. And yet. Good night. Good night. Lenore would talk me out of it, that was another certainty. I'd never get another chance. I would never know. My clip-on flashlight thumped against my thigh as I walked. I didn't bother using it. Heather was visible in the moonlight, just within my range of view. Occasionally, she would disappear, leaving me to walk blindly, but always I would catch up. Never once did she turn around. High above, a strip of brilliant stars was visible above the canyon. Leaves and weeds crunched and snapped underfoot. I was breaking every land conservation principle I would lecture visitors about during the day, walking over untrampled foliage, disturbing natural habitats. I didn't care. Good night. Good night. When I finally exited the line of trees, it was to a flat, sandy clearing, ending at the steep cliff wall. Heather didn't twitch as I approached her. She sat cross-legged, staring forward. Before her was a door set in the rough wall. Open. Good night. Good night. I waited. Nothing emerged from the consuming blackness beyond the threshold. Nothing entered. The door was a modern style, 3 symmetrical frosted panes set into a coat of white paint. It might have been a door from my childhood neighborhood or the prop in a set at a furniture store. How long I stood there, I couldn't tell. An hour perhaps? The whole night? Eventually, Heather rose. She drifted into the open passage in a trance. It shut behind her. Good night. Good night. // Good night. Good night. She visited frequently after that. Good night. Good night. Sometimes, it would take several rounds of knocking before I stirred from sleep. Sometimes, I answered after the first time. Eventually, it was easier just to stay up, curled against my bed frame, waiting for an invitation. Never once did I resist. It was always the same. I would follow Heather or the thing that looked like her through the forest. She would stare at the door for an indefinite quantity of minutes, and eventually she would leave, closing it behind her. There was nothing trying to escape the passage. No white chapel with exploding windows. Night after night, I waited for the chalice to crack, the glass to shatter, the porcelain vase to topple from the pedestal. It never did. Nothing was trying to get me. Nothing besides our routine seemed to happen at all. The changes were so subtle that I didn't notice them at first. Good night. Good night. Over days and weeks, Heather's hair darkened. Her blonde waves shadowed to black, straightened, and lengthened. Soon, they fell past her knees, brushing the foliage as she walked. It would cascade around her when she sat. Her mouth stretched. The corners pulled back across her jaw. Threads appeared, stitching her lips together. Tightening. Her sockets hollowed. Her eyes disappeared entirely. She stared at the door with blackened, empty holes. Lenore's words repeated in my mind. We hope she never comes back. And, it will be worse if she makes a visit. She was right. Even then, I knew it, but I was unable to stop. My need to know had transformed into something more than mere curiosity. Obsession perhaps? Craving. Good night. Good night. I slogged through my work, exhausted from lack of sleep. Caffeine stopped helping. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. I could see the effect my nightly excursions were having on me, but I couldn't bring myself to cut them short. They were draining me. Consuming my own self. Eventually, somebody else noticed. Good night. Good night. I told you to let her go. Good night. Good night. It was the first voice that had ever pierced the silence on my visits to the door. Before me sat Heather, still as ever. I didn't bother looking behind me to identify the speaker. Care to join? I asked. Good night. Good night. You shouldn't be here, Lenore said. Good night. Good night. I'm aware. Why do you think I never told you? Good night. Good night. We stood. Good night. Good night. How did she become like this? I asked. Good night. Good night. She followed the last person. Good night. Good night. Heather inhaled. Far away, a gust of wind shivered the trees, but it never reached us. Not even the wind risked approaching the doors. You have to let this go, Lenore said. Good night. Good night. I know. But I don't think I will. Good night. Good night. Is this because of her? Good night. Good night. I'm not stupid. It's too late for Heather. Even her eyes are gone. If we were ever planning to save her, we would have had. Not Heather. Rachel. Good night. Good night. I inhaled sharply. How do you? Good night. Good night. We do background checks, she said. Winona has me help. Simple things. Sex offender registries and such. I did a Google search on you before we ever hired you. There were a dozen news articles about the accident. Your name popped up. She was your fiancée. I didn't respond, but Lenore kept talking. For once, she was the chatty one. Good night. Good night. You need closure about the doors, because you never got closure about her. That's right, isn't it? She died, and this is your way of coping. If you can figure out what's going on in Ebony, you can let go of what happened to Rachel. Heather stood. She approached the door and disappeared beyond. It pulled shut with the whisper of a click. Eventually, Lenore left. Good night. Good night. Eventually, I did too. Good night. Good night. She would appear occasionally after that, not every night, but enough I was no longer surprised when she took up place beside me. She never tried to drag me away or threatened to tell Winona. Most nights, Lenore didn't even speak, but she knew, as did I, that her mere presence was a guard against me doing anything dumb. I was going to call it off, I told her after a week. A cloud drifted across the moon, temporarily darkening our surroundings. Rachel and I, it was fine at first. We had fun, lots of fun really, but after we got engaged, she changed. There was this cruel side to her I hadn't noticed. She would manipulate you, then cry when you called her out until you apologized. If you didn't give her constant attention, she would get angry. Scream. Throw things. She wasn't evil. Don't misunderstand. But she wasn't good for me for anybody realistically. I was planning to end things the week of the accident, but, well, you read what happened. Afterwards, her family wanted to keep me as a part of things. They invited me to family dinners every week. They had no idea what I'd been planning, and neither do I really. That's the problem. I never got a chance to finish the last few pages of that book. They got ripped out, and I'm just left wondering. Lenore finished. Good night. Good night. Wondering. Good night. Good night. The cloud moved past the moon. Light splashed the sharp lines of her face. Good night. Good night. Well, she said. Then you'll have to decide. If you keep coming, eventually Heather will offer you a choice like she was offered one. You can go, and you can no. Or you can stay. But don't you have some idea? I waved my hands at our surroundings. Some sort of a guess. Can't I stay and no? Tell me you don't have some sort of a guess. I have my theories. Lenore shrugged. But they're mine. Good night. Good night. Lenore stopped joining me after that. Good night. Good night. At the end of the next week, it happened just like she'd said. Good night. Good night. Heather was no longer Heather. She was a creature of blackness, fully consumed by the night. Her face, clothes, teeth, skin, all of them, had blackened to the color that will exist at the end of the universe. Any lingering human expression was gone. The only distinguishable feature was her slit of a mouth, threaded shut. That last night, she didn't bother sitting. When we reached the clearing, she approached the door directly. Just before she stepped through, she did something she'd never done before. She turned, smiled with her disfigured lips, and waved me forward. This time, when she continued on, the door stayed open. Go and no. Good night. Good night. Stay. Good night. Good night. I approached. Ambulance lights flashed in my mind, screams, and gasps, and the high-pitched ring of a flatline in a sterile hospital room. Blackness beckoned me forward, the gaping chasm of an end. Above me, a half-moon whispered me on. I hovered at the threshold, the final page of an almost finished story. Then I shut the door, touching only the handle. I inserted the key I'd borrowed from the ranger station. I turned. Good night. Good night. /. Good night. Good night. The last week of my seasonal position, Winona called me into her office. This wasn't overly odd. She'd been doing exit interviews with all of us seasonal rangers, but as soon as I sat, I could tell something was different. Well, she said. Good night. Good night. Well, I said back. Good night. Good night. She clicked a pen once against her desk. She clicked it again. One of my permanents is leaving the end of the season. Much as I've tried to convince them to stay on, they're determined. We'll need a replacement. You're asking me to stay. Good night. Good night. Let's not jump the gun here. Good night. Good night. Right. Sorry. Good night. Good night. But yes. Beyond my better judgment, I'm offering you a trial position as a permanent park ranger. Apparently, one of the other rangers thinks you might be an ideal fit. Lenore said that. Good night. Good night. It's not important who said that. Good night. Good night. Okay, but it was Lenore, right? Good night. Good night. If you don't shut up, I'm rescinding the offer and you leave here in a body bag. I shut up. Good night. Good night. /. Good night. Good night. Ebony Gorge isn't like other national parks. Good night. Good night. We're smaller, for one. We only have one campsite, and our staff of rangers is limited. Guests don't tend to visit more than once, and when they do visit, we often have to warn them off from hikes that don't technically exist and not to touch the 10-foot tall cairns they'll find in the back country. There are doors in the canyon walls of every shape and size. Every quarter moon, we take turns locking them. There are many hypotheses about Ebony Gorge. Hikers have them. So do the staff. They laugh about them during the day, and at night, they whisper about them around campfires. Sometimes, I'm sure I've figured it out. During my turn in the bi-monthly rotation, when the moon is split in half, and the forest of the canyon is silent, a warm knowing will settle over me. I'm confident I understand what is going on. I'm sure. Most times, I'm not. Good night. Good night. The most we can do is guess. Those of us who have been here longest are no exception, myself included, but we're also the ones who know it's best to keep our guesses to ourselves. I have my theories. Of course, I do. Good night. Good night. But they're mine. Good night. Good night. And that is where our story rests for tonight. Let your thoughts drift away, slow and easy. Good night. Sleep well.